Hi everyone, and welcome to the Fake Love and Flying Monkeys podcast. My name's Nova Gibson and I am your host. My area of expertise is in supporting victims and survivors of narcissistic abuse and other toxic relationships. I'm the principal counsellor at Brighter Outlook Narcissistic Abuse Counselling Service, and I'm also the author of Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about everything from the initial pink cloud you find yourself on at the start through to the horrific discard and the powerful trauma bond that keeps you hooked. So take your imaginary seat on the roller coaster that is narcissistic abuse, and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode of Fake Love and Flying Monkeys. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fake Love and Flying Monkeys. This episode is about future faking. What is future faking? Okay, for those of you who haven't heard of this term, future faking is a strategy that all narcissists use to manipulate you and to control you. So it's about making you feel like they are invested in a future with you. That's it in a nutshell, but they do this by giving you false promises. They will manipulate you into thinking that they're invested in a future with you by talking about plans that are way off in the future, or things that they know will pull at your heartstrings. Basically, they target your hopes and your dreams. They target that part of you that wants to settle down. And when they bring these sorts of things up, it makes you think that this person is not just after a one-night stand, if it's an intimate partner, or if it's a parent or someone else is the narcissist in your life. It's still about getting you hooked in the present, getting you to do what they want, to tolerate their abuse, or to override the red flags because of these promises they make to make all your dreams in the future come true. Now, the term future faking says it all. It's about faking a future with you, so you think they're in it for the long haul. So it normally starts off very early on in the love bombing stage. If it's an intimate partner who is the narcissist in your life, they might say something like, "Oh my goodness, I could just imagine settling down with someone like you. You'd make the perfect wife or husband. Do you know that?" Or, "Why don't we book in a holiday for next year or the year after?" Or maybe they'll say something like, "Oh my goodness, my parents would love to meet someone like you. They've never liked anyone else I've been with, but I know they would like you." So the victim thinks that, wow, they're talking about all these things that are, way off in the future. And the idea is to get you cemented in the present. So future faking is about cementing you in the present. They will pull out every trick in the book to get you hooked before you see who they really are. And they listen so carefully to what you're telling them, and they pick up on what your dreams are. So in my book, Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse, I talk about how Justin future faked with Sophie, the victim in my book, by presenting her with all she'd ever wanted, the idea of being a wife and a mother and settling down with the one. And this dream was just so enticing to her that it became very easy for her to override any niggling little doubts she had with the relationship. She painted those red flags a different color because those dreams were something that she had never experienced as a child. She came from a tumultuous childhood with an abusive, toxic, narcissistic mother, and she had never felt that love. So Justin, the narcissistic husband, picked up on that, and he future faked by presenting this ideal future where she could stay home and devote all her time to the children. She didn't need to have a career because he would support her. Well, of course, when she had no job, no money, he was controlling all the resources, then that dream was shattered. Narcissists don't just save their future faking for the beginning of the relationship. They will use this strategy for the entire relationship. They love nothing better than to get your hopes up about something and watch your excitement grow and grow, just to shatter that excitement and to enjoy your disappointment when it doesn't happen. And then, of course, they'll flip it back onto you that it was your fault, or that you're ungrateful for everything else that they do for you. Now, the narcissist, as we know, basically has a PhD in manipulation. So they come up with all of these ways to make their future faking, their false promises still believable to you. Because if they did it every single time, you would see a pattern develop, and it would be less likely that they would get their sadistic joy by seeing your disappointment when those plans don't come into reality. So they will do things like shift the timeline around. They will tell you that they had to rebook that holiday because something was wrong with the flight organizer. It wasn't their fault, but they still plan to go through with it. In other words, they're shifting the goalposts so that you still believe you're going to get that reward. It's just going to come at a later time. Now, they know when you are hooked. They innately know when their victim is hooked on the person they pretend to be. So when the victim starts to be devalued, they're already enmeshed with the narcissist. Most likely they've moved in together. They're very dependent on the narcissist for their self-worth. Maybe you've combined resources, you've plastered it all over social media how this person is the one because that's the person that you believed they were. So if you are enmeshed with them and you believe that they're just having some kind of issue in their life where it's not their fault that what they promised didn't happen. In other words, you're making excuses for their lies. Then what you're doing is you're coming up with some pretty effective survival techniques, some pretty effective coping mechanisms. Once you're hooked and the devaluing stage starts, then you will have to come up with some very effective ways to rationalize away the narcissist lies. The trauma bond is powerful, and if you can't leave, you don't want to leave because of that powerful addiction, that powerful, illogical attachment to your abuser, then through cognitive dissonance, you have to make the abuse not as bad as it is. So victims apply their coping mechanisms to the times that the narcissist fails again and again to follow through with their promises. In other words, you will find a way to rationalize away the narcissist's lies. Victims come up with all kinds of coping mechanisms to survive the abuse that so often they can't even define as abuse. And one such technique is one that occurs normally a lot further down the track, and that is to simply not look forward to anything. It's a subconscious technique where their brain is protecting them by not getting their hopes up about anything, because if you don't get excited about anything, then you are guaranteed that you're not going to have to endure that devastation, that shattering disappointment when once again you have found that the person who professes to love you intermittently has just lied to you again. So why do victims stay when they have found out that they've been lied to and that the narcissist had no intention of following through with what they promised? Well, the answer to that lies in the fact that these promises are occurring in the future. So you think about it. You've met the one. They are love bombing you and you are on this pink cloud and you are feeling amazing. And they're implying a future with you by reflecting all your goals and dreams and hopes back to you. But things that won't happen, till a few years, months at least down the track. So what happens is, whilst you're waiting for that promise to come to fruition, they've got all of this time up their sleeve to wear down your defenses, to condition you to not trust your instincts, and of course, to make you dependent on them for your self-worth. They will have you in a confused state 100% of the time as you try and reconcile their words with their actions. So when these promises don't happen, when nothing is fulfilled and you're disappointed, you very quickly come up with ways of minimizing the abuse or believing that the narcissist had some excuse that wasn't their fault, or of course believing them when they said it was your fault that they had to cancel those plans. Let's look at a couple of other examples of future faking. Now, one really common strategy that some narcissists will use is, let's just say, as a woman, you want to have a baby. It's been your dream your entire life to be a mother. And the narcissist hooks you in gets you married and enmeshed. All your finances are tied up with them. You've got nothing of your own. You're completely dependent on them. But they promise you that next year, when I get that job I want, or when we make enough money, or we make this amount of money, then we'll do that. And then, of course, that time comes and they have another excuse, and then they put it off again, and you hang around and you wait, and the next time they promise that this would be when we will do it, this is when we will start trying, they have another excuse for you. And I've even heard that when eventually the time comes that they say, okay, this is it, this is when we're going to start trying, the victim finds out that their narcissistic partner or spouse can't even have children because they've taken measures such as having surgery. I'm not going to say the name of it in case this episode gets taken down, but I'm sure you will know what I mean. The measures that you take when you decide you've had enough children, you don't want to have any more, or you don't want to have any children at all. And to top it off, they don't tell the victim, and the victim spends months and months trying and suffering disappointment, life-shattering disappointment every time they realize that it didn't happen for them, and all the while thinking that there's something wrong with them. It's their fault that they can't do what so many other human beings just take for granted, which is to be able to have a baby. Now, that particular occurrence is more common than you think, but the future faking is evident in that a promise was made, and we're not talking about normal individuals here. People make those choices and they change their mind because of life circumstances all the time. You're allowed to change your mind, but this type of future faking is not an isolated incident. There will be so many other things that they have failed to follow through with, or they've broken your heart with. And of course, all of the other narcissistic consistent patterns of abusive behavior over space and time. So yes, people who are not disordered change their mind and shift the dates around things like that. Very important life issues. And it makes sense that if it isn't the right time, that is something that you do change to a time when you believe you can be the best mum or dad. But it's also a decision that's made as a couple where both people in that relationship are on the same page, and there's no manipulation taking place and no building up of hopes just to shatter them at the last minute. Another classic example that I hear so often from my beautiful clients, and guys, if you'd like to have a one-on-one session with me, please just see my website in the description, and I'd love to be able to support you in a one-on-one Zoom counseling session. But this situation involves the narcissist who has a settlement coming their way. Perhaps someone's done the wrong thing by them. They've got a major windfall coming their way, or an insurance payout, something like that, and they're just waiting for that to come. So they get their victim hooked, enmeshed, while their head is spinning because the relationship is going so fast. But the victim doesn't mind loaning them money or allowing them to move in very quickly because they believe with everything they have, because the narcissist was so convincing that they will get their money, their windfall. This will all come in a matter of weeks or months, and at that time they will be reimbursed for whatever they outlaid to the narcissist. Or maybe it's that the narcissist, once again, because their money was tied up by some unscrupulous person or people that have taken advantage of their kind heart, and they get you to go guarantor on a loan. You put your name on that car loan. Only the car is in their name. And then, of course, when you're discarded and they're off with the new target, they're driving around, potentially ruining your credit history for life if they have a terrible accident and smash up someone's Mercedes. They're driving around in a car that you are paying for, that they've stopped the payments on. Maybe they keep just the first couple of payments up, once again, keeping you hooked. That's a form of future faking, by paying those first two payments on time. And then, of course, they stop paying. And you confront them with, this car is in my name, and I'm worried about my credit. When are you going to make another payment? And they either ignore your calls, or if they do answer, they will say, oh yes, it's coming tomorrow or the next day. And you call them, you end up begging them to pay back the money that you so kindly gave them. Or they'll just flat out tell you, I'm not paying that back because I did all this work on your house, or I did this, and this for you, so I don't believe I owe you that money. And if you are going to try and make me pay it back, well, I'm going to go to a lawyer and get reimbursed for all of the work I did on your house. Now, believe it or not, this type of future faking is very effective in keeping a victim hooked way beyond the discard, even when they're off with the new target, because often the victim is still painfully trauma bonded to their abuser, and subconsciously this is their way of keeping the narcissist in their life, with hopes that maybe one day they'll change and they'll realize just what they let go. And of course, it's reasonable to contact someone who owes you money. So it keeps the victim on the string, and the victim, because they are still trauma bonded to their abuser, they don't want to make them angrier. They don't want to upset them, because then they really might just completely wipe them from their life, and there would be no chance of getting them back. So the victim agrees to accept payments rather than going and seeing a lawyer or ringing the Department of Transport and letting them know that someone else is driving a car around that's in their name, and they're scared that they really will lose this person for good. And of course, their confidence is shattered, and maybe the abuser is being really, really nice to them. The abuser is doing whatever it takes to keep the victim at bay by future faking around when they will pay off the debt that they owe to their victim. Narcissists are also very good at pulling out the future faking strategy when they sense they're losing control over you. They will engage in future faking towards the end if they feel like you are pulling away. They will promise you everything they failed to bring to fruition in the past, such as promising you the house that you wanted or the next baby that you wanted. Maybe that's something, once again, they said, no, not doing it. It's not happening. I don't want any more kids. Oh yes, let's have another baby. That will make our relationship stronger. And they will promise you anything. And they know how disappointed you were in the past. So they know these things are bound to work, or there's more chance of them working in terms of you not leaving and re-entering that cycle of abuse. They will re-promise you all of the things they never did. And the victim has been begging for the narcissist to do all of these things. I'll fix the house up for you. I'll sell that old car of yours and buy that new one that's more reliable that you wanted. I won't stay out all night and I'll give up drinking. Whatever they can say that they think will keep you stuck in the present. And they know what works because it is in direct relationship, in direct proportion to the disappointment they saw in your face in the past. Narcissists also use future faking to avoid conflict. Here you are asking them to do something for you. Let's just say it's your narcissistic spouse, and they delay their commitment to you by promising you something else that will deflect from what you're trying to get out of them, from what you're trying to get them to commit to, and also to remain unaccountable from anything you're trying to get them to be accountable for. So for instance, you are approaching them about something they've done wrong, and they immediately tell you, look, we'll go on that weekend away. Okay, let's book it in for another month. Okay, I know I've been kind of busy with work. I've been, neglecting my duties as a spouse. So let's do it. Let's book it in. So to avoid accountability, to avoid the conflict that arose or would arise in you approaching them about something you have every right to do, something that is abusive and certainly inappropriate and disrespectful. To avoid any type of confrontation, they'll future fake. And of course, many victims will know that when they believe that the time comes 2 weeks down the track when they're supposed to be going away, and for some reason, it just won't happen. And the narcissist will have all of the excuses in the world. And this sets the victim up for such a low tolerance for respect and an incredibly high threshold for abuse, for being lied to, and thinking that those ongoing lies are not as bad as they really are. And the narcissist really is trying as hard as they can, and whatever happened isn't their fault. And of course, anything you were trying to make them accountable for in the beginning is forgotten about. It's swept under the carpet, and your dreams are shattered once again, and the narcissist will just engage in that abusive behavior again because there was no accountability. They got out of it by future faking and promising something they know would make you happy. Now, as you reflect on the relationship with the narcissist in your life, you will no doubt be able to think of so many ways they engaged in future faking, which is basically about getting you to tolerate whatever they're dishing out for you in the present, thinking that somewhere down the track you're going to be rewarded, and it gets you to hang in there. And it might be something as simple as promising you that they'll ring you, and they don't do that. They don't follow through with calling you that night after work like they said they would. And this is so confusing, especially when they've been love bombing you and they couldn't get enough of you, and they were ringing you every morning. Good morning, my princess, or good night, my prince, sweet dreams. And then all of a sudden, nothing. And you come up with all of these rationalizations as to why it wasn't that bad that they didn't call you, because they had, called you so many times in the past, and they were so reliable in the past that this is just, the relationship going through its normal kind of easing off stage. The difference is that the behaviors that occur in a normal honeymoon phase don't just come to a screeching halt like they do with the narcissist. But you will also not just rationalize away that, that they had some reasonable excuse. You will also come up with ways of apportioning blame to yourself around why you are perhaps paranoid or maybe insecure, because this person who had been so reliable in the past is now just showing you that they've got a life of their own, and you've got to cut them some slack. So how do you tell if someone is future faking with you? Well, if they're talking about things that are really big issues or things that you wouldn't normally talk about or you wouldn't plan with someone you don't know very well, that can be a red flag. Is it an absolute guarantee? No, because being aware of someone manipulating you is about looking at patterns of behavior. So guys, don't just assume that if someone suggests something happening in the future that, they know that you would love to see happen and that's been one of your dreams or goals. Don't just assume they're manipulating you, but certainly don't bank on it. And just be aware that people who don't know you very well don't talk about really important concepts in the future, such as, marriage, moving in together, meeting your parents, all of those things that you would think would only happen with someone that you trust implicitly, and that you know very, very well. Now, if you're listening to this episode, that suggests to me that you already have your eyes and your ears open. And that's not paranoia, guys. If you've been abused, traumatized by a narcissist, that's just self-care, because you know these people are out there. So just look at that type of behavior, if it crops up in your life, as one to keep your eye out for, and to look for patterns of behavior, patterns of future faking that also line up with other narcissistic red flags. And that brings us to the end of another Fake Love and Flying Monkeys episode. I hope you enjoyed that, guys. Future faking is something that every narcissist does. So if you are still enmeshed with the narcissist and you are still believing their promises, even though there has been this ongoing pattern of lies where nothing ever happens and you just end up disappointed time and time again, then I really hope that you found this episode insightful and that you don't hang around for the next disappointment when you find out that they were just future faking with you. So on that note, guys, if you would like to have a one-on-one session with me, a counseling session, please just see my description for this episode to book a Zoom session in. And don't forget to get your copy of my best-selling book, Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. Please leave a rating and a review. It helps so much with the algorithm. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can buy me a cup of coffee. There's a link there. Every little bit helps to keep the channel going. On that note, it's bye from me for now. Until the next episode, remember, you are worthy of love, and you are worthy of so much more than a lifetime of fake love and flying monkeys.